Hey guys, HuzzyGames bringing you another video, and welcome to another video. This is on the main account, and I will say this is a POV commentary. You'll probably see why. But the title of the video is going to probably something to do with like my have I beaten my all-time record LP. So I will say things have been going pretty good recently on the main account. I think there's for a number of reasons for that. I do feel I've tried to focus a little bit more recently. Obviously, you're getting 95% of the time top lane content. And for those that are wondering, like, what happened or why, you know, a month ago, I was stuck in low diamond. I was kind of messing around. I didn't really have a goal. I didn't have a really focus, and I kind of got annoyed by that. So what I've done recently, and I think it's pretty noticeable, is I've tried to give myself more of a focus. I've kind of said to myself, no, I do want to climb seriously, because I don't know if that is exactly what people want when it comes to content. You know, I think I'm gonna try my best in the near future and like starting now to be a bit more educational, and I definitely think I have been in the more recent times. But you know, in my mind, the higher rating I am, it obviously can't hurt. It should only help. So obviously being now very much in master, I think it's a nice place to be. So upon recording this one, I think I was about 130 or so LP master. My LP record before this game was 142 LP, and in my house we have a bit of an in-joke that, for those that don't know, my partner Queen Pleb, she is a TFT player, and she is very good when she doesn't, you know, when she likes a set and she has a bit of, like, you know, if work's not absolutely insane, she will get pretty high rank in TFT. And the kind of in-joke in my house is she actually has the LP record, not me, because my LP record was 142 LP and her LP record is 143 LP, so literally one more LP than I. But if I win this game, then I will actually get an all-time record and also take the LP record off my house. But Heimer, so why Heimer? So I will say Champ Select was a little bit iffy in this game. I played this game on Friday. Today of me recording this POV is Sunday, and the Nico on our team was very negative. You know, in Champ Select, kind of one of those vocal negative people that, you know, it doesn't really help. But she was very negative, and this game was a bit of a weird one. So when I saw the Ambessa pick, I did thankfully have a counter pick option. Because it was already a little bit iffy with the Champ Select, I was like, I'm just going to play something that I find fun. And that is also something I've been trying to do more recently, is playing serious picks, playing, you know, kind of dedicated top lane. And I'd say at the moment we have a champion pool of, what, about 10 or so champions I'm playing on the fair regular. But Heimer is something that I do enjoy. Is it a bit scumbag? Yeah, for sure. I played, obviously, against a Heimer a few days ago. I was Shen. You know, again, the Heimer actually was a Shen main. And we beat him. You know, I kind of eventually started walking over that Heimer. The thing with champs like Heimer in top lane, and I think people, the better you are, the more you realize, they're not fantastic picks when it comes to solo queue. They're very good if you're kind of left alone in an isolated 1v1. And that's still not a guarantee. But eventually, something like an Ambessa will inevitably run you over if you let her. But if I get early ganks by Inamumu before I build up enough power, then the Ambessa will have a bit of a difficult laning phase. Yeah, this game as a whole, the Zoe's already roaming. I will say Zoe is a very, very scary pick. Look at how much damage, by the way, in that first engage. I'll say how, like, what actually the key to Heimer is in a second, because most people that play Heimer actually get him wrong. Well, like, they don't get him wrong, but they don't prioritize the right thing. And if in that game a few days ago where I played against that other Heimer, he was completely prioritizing everything wrong. But yeah, so going just quickly to say about Zoe. Zoe's a very powerful champion. Like, she was buffed recently, and I will say I was shocked when she got buffed, because Zoe is incredibly powerful in the hands of a very good Zoe player. That's one thing. She isn't the easiest champion to play, and even though I may have said in the past, like, oh, she's a frustrating champion to play against, and even players that will play Zoe. I remember Vixie, obviously, when she played a lot of League, amazing Zoe player, and she didn't like people talking down or saying stuff about Zoe, but the moment you're against a Zoe, it was like, God, this is infuriating, because that's what she is. But the Zoe has very clear weaknesses. Like, she's incredibly good in 1v1. She is dreadful in anything other than a 1v1. And if the better you are, the more coordinated you are, when she uses her ultimate, she's always going to bounce back to that same place. It's very easy to counter that. if you just go correctly in the right area. So I'm getting ganked, and I will say this gank was very questionable. Unfortunately, he does get a nice Q away to get an escape, and Talon won't get there in time, but that was like a very uncoordinated, like Amumu coming for a gank. Good to do it fairly early, but then Ambessa was too low. Ambessa didn't go in, so Amumu kind of got destroyed. But going into what the actual key is, and by the way, my bot lane is having a rough game, the key to Heimer is his grenade. That is the whole champion. And the quicker that people realize that, the better either your player's Heimer or the better you'll be against a Heimer. That's where a few days ago against the other guy, when he was just throwing his grenades out, it was wild, because that is all of the priority of Heimer. It's landing the grenade, having your towers, you know, basically all combined damage on one target. That is the power. And it's also obviously CC. So when that guy was just randomly throwing it out, even without towers, I do it that time because there's no risk. That's the nice thing when you're against something Ambessa. You can throw it out a little bit randomly if you feel that there's no risk. I've gone back, I've got item advantage. She's not basing, and she's also doing this kind of weird thing that she's not basing away enough to let me, like, she should just walk a few more steps south, then I wouldn't be able to stop her. And I will say I was finding this very weird, because I'm like, you're quite low, I have item advantage, I land, well, I want to land a grenade, and then I could even look for an ultimate and then W, and I'm pretty sure she'll be dead. But what basically you have to realize, and it is very noticeable the higher rating you get, is the higher rating you get, and you know, there are players in this game that are 200 LP master, the higher rating you get, players do not want to miss gold. Gold is everything, whether it be a kill, whether it be farm, they are in their brain, they're like, but if I go back right now, I'm gonna miss like half of wave. They are so against it that it actually can be the death of players. So there's the grenade, there's the ultimate, and boom, you're dead. So that was basically a kill just waiting to happen because the Ambessa just wouldn't go back. So now, yeah, she got all those waves of farm and XP, and she will just teleport back pretty soon, but she just gave me 300 and something gold. I still got a lot of farm, so there we go. So bot lane, I will say, is going quite bad. I did actually make a mistake there. I walked away. I didn't notice the tower plate because I was watching bot lane. That is a habit of mine that I probably need to stop as much watching the map. And I do it partially because I'm doing content and I think everyone would like to know what's going on, you know, around the map. I'm also interested as well, let's be honest. But overall, not too bad. Yeah, bot lane's going very bad. And Ambessa, obviously, you could say partial tilt. You never know. She dies from a bad play in top. She doesn't instantly go back to top like you'd expect. She runs mid and actually helps get a kill on Sylas. So bot lane is 0-4, adding them together. Sylas is really struggling in the 1v1. And the Talon, I'm just pointing out here, you might recognize his name. I think he might have been in a video in the Shen game, I think. He's a one-trick Talon player, and actually was playing Kiana a few games ago. So again, another thing that's going to be a little bit more common. I wouldn't be shocked if you're watching, you know, all the videos in the recent time. And by the way, this is the Nico support leaving top lane now. I do land a good grenade. It does do the follow-up damage as well. Doesn't look like we're going to get the kill, though. And I will say, this is where I was getting a bit worried. And I think around now is when I kind of was like, right, let's not do a commentary. This is going a little bit south. You know, my team is getting destroyed. Nico's rage quit bot lane. So I think nearly is about the time that I was like, right, let's just put music on and chill. This was going to be my last game of the day anyway. But yeah, so where you'd be like, okay, she's just going to do one gank, no big deal. No, she's staying in top. So very frustrating. Obviously not the most help in the world, because again, the thing that people need to realize, you might be like, oh, but this is doing well, you know, they can't do anything in bot lane, so now they're trying to put pressure elsewhere on the map. But in top lane, everything is about 1v1. Everything is about 1v1 pressure, XP, etc. So I do my ultimate tower. Do think that was the right call in the end, because we had good CC. They do get the Zoe, and then I get the last hit on the Ambessa. So you might be like, oh, that's all good. It's worked out, but then what the Nico should do right now is instantly go bot. The fact that she's staying is turning it into griefing, because I am losing XP. As a solo laner, one of the worst things, and people don't understand, is solo XP is actually, experience in general, is actually where a lot of your strength comes. If you fight somebody, even if you're a little bit of an item ahead of somebody or something, but they've got 2 levels on you, very often the person that has got the levels will beat the person that has even got an item advantage. And then what confused me here is that she stayed a long time in lane phase, kind of took a lot of XP and gold, then didn't stay for helping kill the tower. Now, I wasn't 100% sure I was even going to be able to get that tower. That was a better ultimate, a bit too late, but I wasn't even sure I was going to get that tower. So then I was like, oh, Nico should have stayed then for the tower if you were committing to be top lane. But yeah, so it was a little bit... obviously, it was worth saying, the enemy bot lane, I don't rate picking Lucian. People know that. I don't really rate picking early game champs in general anymore. Where this fight is not looking too hot. Basically, Severe is one of the worst early game one of the worst champions in League of Legends in early. Literally, she is beyond weak early, but she is one of the best late games. Where Lucian obviously is only early game, and obviously with Lucian is most of the time he doesn't even win the early game, and then he doesn't scale at all. So the only thing I would say in the background of my mind, and I do remember saying it on stream, was I'm not, if my team don't mega tilt and they don't give up, this game is winnable because their fed person is a Lucian and he will fall off. Zoe also is not good at dealing with late game. She's only good at doing 1v1 stuff. So this game is definitely winnable. It just depends, well, on a lot of like, are they going to tilt? Now, when it comes to Heimer, if for those that are potentially looking at any advice when it comes to how do you beat a Heimer, again, what this ambassador should have done there, for those that are like, she should have hard engaged me right there. I didn't have many towers. I had one available. I still only have one available. I do an ultimate W, didn't land a lot of the damage. And obviously, I was looking if Talon was going to come for an engage, but he didn't fully commit for it. Nico is here again, disguised as a minion, and I don't think the ambassador's noticed. And now it's too late because, boom, they do go for the engage. I managed to survive. Nico does a heal. Zoe was in the area as well, so that kind of made it a little bit precarious. But we do manage to survive, and that's the biggest thing. So, overall, pretty good. Always worth knowing when it comes to Nico. I've always given the advice when there's a Nico in the game, you can counter the champion. If you're against the Nico, how you counter the champion is nothing to do with gameplay. It's all paying attention to scoreboard. It is hard to keep track of, especially when you're bot lane, you can keep track of it more. If it's Nico support, it's like, right, that's my lane opponent. I can keep track of this. Nice. It is really hard for a top laner to be like keeping track of where the Nico is. So, but in essence, the counter is on the scoreboard. When an enemy is visible on the scoreboard, they'll be highlighted. If they're not visible, like the ambassador right there had a question mark next to her name. When it comes to Nico, if she is transformed as something, but she is visible on the map, no matter what it is. It could be a minion, it could be a jungle monster, it could be anything. Even if she's transformed, and you technically have vision of her transformed, if she's a lane minion in lane, you will see a highlighted profile image of Nico. It will not be a question mark. So if you don't see Nico on the map, but Nico is highlighted on the scoreboard, it means she is somewhere on the map transformed into something. And obviously, if you don't have much jungle vision, you can probably narrow it down. Oh, she's a lane minion right now. It's a huge counter, but it is obviously really hard to consistently keep track of. So Zoe's looking for a potential gank on me. Ambassador's here. I don't genuinely know why she decided to run face first in. Zoe obviously going to try her best to help with the ambassador. But they were a bit too split, is what I would say. Well, the enemy team, and then weirdly, she survives, but then just walks forward. So I don't know if that was tilt. I have no idea. But yeah, what already has happened is there's definitely been times that the enemy team could have killed me with the Amumu, with that Zoe just then, but they've never been coordinated. They've never gone in at the same time. That's what they need to do. That is, again, Heimer's weakness, is getting basically completely overwhelmed. But yeah, it's not been happening fully. So again, my team going for odd engages, 3v1 Talon. It kind of just looks like they're a bit desperate to kill the Lucian. But again, just to make it very clear, if you're against something pretty damn early game like a Lucian, there shouldn't be any major risk. And now, Silas is TPing in. So I will say, at this stage of the game, I don't mind fully admitting, I thought, well, this game we've lost. I think most people would feel that by the end of this game, like that was basically inting what Silas just did. He just teleported into 3 people in mid lane. It's like, So at this point, I did think, well, it's been a good run. Before this game, we were on a 7-game win streak, by the way. And losses are always gonna happen as part of solo queue. But I did kind of think, well, we're probably gonna lose. But what I would always say, I don't mind surrendering, and I think that's what people get a bit confused by when they do see a surrender boat by me. I don't mind surrendering. I don't like the never surrender mentality. I think it's good. How do I say? It's good in the short run to have the never surrender mentality, for sure, because, you know, it makes sense, blah, blah, blah. When it comes to, oh, I'm actually playing nice ganks by the Nico. So again, it's worth saying ganks right now from the Nico are fine because it's not lane phase anymore. That just is really smart. But when it's another death, and I will say, I am reporting, like, people may question the reports, but I would say it's very different when you're in game to when you're watching or something. Obviously, when you're watching, you don't have as big of an emotional attachment to the game that I'm in. What I would say is, for this level of play, that's something I would always consider. If I was in a platinum game, I wouldn't be reporting this at all. But we're in over 100 LP Master. These people are doing very peculiar plays, of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and these players 100% know better. That's when it's borderline inting for me. So yeah, but what I would say is, I know mentally I wasn't going to give up in this game. Like, when it comes to surrender, I think I would have said no because of the enemy's team comp. Comp obviously is everything. I know I'm doing fairly well as Heimer. Zoe is only good in really realistic 1v1s. Lucian falls off an absolute cliff, not even long into the future of this game. So I'm fairly confident the longer we go, this game could transform into a win. And you would never think it, like, even though, you know, the score is 18-11, that's actually not that bad. The enemy team has got so much more in territory, towers, everything. Now, here's a big gain for us. So the Amumu got caught out. They are looking for engages. Nico's going for a big ulti, and they're going to go for a nice one. Now, the one thing is the Sylas really struggled in lane phase, but it's Sylas. Sylas is a very strong champion. I think most people in League would agree to that. He's incredibly strong. Severe gets a nice kill because the Zoe, again, Zoe and, weirdly, I'd say Zoe and Heimer have similarities of their weaknesses getting overwhelmed. Heimer's probably better at dealing with it than a Zoe because Heimer has his towers that will be doing damage if he can grenade at the right time. Zhonya's is in his natural build path, and you can Zhonya's and be immune while tower damage is happening. Zoe can't do that. But yeah, you just have to overwhelm a Zoe, and she's not very strong when it comes to team fighting at all. Talon's now going to go get the dragon. I'm, I think, going to go Riley, by the way, second item. Obviously, for pure damage, you would just go a pure another damage item. But because of the game as a whole, Riley's gives you a few things. It gives you a bit of survivability because it gives you a bit more tankiness than a pure damage item would. It gives you the slow. That's obviously a big component, and that's going to be a major counter to Ambessa. It will even hurt a Lucian because he's not the highest range when it comes to auto-attacking. And it gives you more control. I think control in this type of game, when it is going quite bad, is quite a powerful thing. Now, I was thinking, will they come over to this way? You can see Amumu is pathing here right now, and he's queued over. Annoyingly, and it's my own error, I just positioned a tower a little bit too close to the Wraiths, or Raptors, whatever the hell they're called nowadays, and it did aggro them. So that was unfortunate, because that could have potentially been an Amumu kill. If, you know, he aggroed all of them. And sometimes they naturally pull the aggro to the bush to make sure they're not getting caught, and then I could have sprung my attack. But yeah, game's still going. Sylas is definitely recovering his game overall. Again, he didn't do the best in lane phase, and I would say what the weird thing was is the Zoe went for a very roam heavy playstyle, when normally that would be more of a Sylas doing that, but actually the Zoe did that instead. So where our bot lane did do very bad, they did get ganked by a Zoe a couple times in the early game. Sylas also got a 1v1 trade, but in a 2v1. So that's actually also not that bad. And the enemy bot lane is going for a tier 2. Now, what I would say, and people maybe, you know, maybe people would disagree, I don't think this Lucian should take this tier 2. And you might, really? No. Because, again, he's very strong right now. Go for my ultimate. Help the Talon get a go. He is very strong right now, but he is not a late game carry. So when he's taking a tier 2 that is worth a lot of gold, it's probably not the best for him to collect that. Is it good for him to damage it a bit? Yeah. Where I would say for most champions in League who scale, it's always a positive thing to trade a life for a tier 2 tower. But for something for a Lucian, where again he's all about the early game and now he's dead for a bunch of seconds, he can't continuously be putting pressure on, I don't think it's worth it. And it would also be more beneficial to have that 700 odd gold on an Ambessa or a Zoe because they scale better. So that's what I would say, is I just don't think Lucian is the best target to prioritize for tier 2. If his team was there to obviously be there with him, and then by the way, I would start running because I'm like, that's a Nami buff. So the Nami's down here with the Zoe for some reason. But yeah, so that's my opinion on it. You know, some people might be like, oh, but it's 700 gold, that's a lot of gold. It's a lot of gold. So like, you know, an AD carry obviously will want just any gold it can have, but when you think of the long-term picture of winning the game, etc, etc, I just don't think a Lucian should be the one that should be going, especially when he's already pretty damn fed. Unfortunately, Severe got caught, I guess, again. Silas actually gets a tier 2 top lane. He did, I believe, kill Ambessa. But yeah, so the enemy team might be looking for Arakan. One thing that they definitely should do, and this is just, you know, words of wisdom, when you do have an early game comp, what your priority should be, and I go for a thingy play here. Yeah, the idea was there, it was just a bit too far in range. I did get the heal out of Nami. But just in general, if you know you have a bit more of an early game comp, you know, if you've got a Lucian AD carry or Renekton top, prioritize basically every single objective, because that gives you scaling. You know, dragon buffs can give early game champions scaling that they don't have. If you get infernal dragons on not late game champions, where each time you get an infernal dragon, it's plus what, 4% AD, 4% AP. That's scaling. Like, that's what objectives can give. So if you're an early game comp that doesn't get objectives, and a late game comp will naturally outscale you, and they get the objectives, well, then you've got no chance. So that's where I would say, if you are playing something earlier game, definitely prioritize. They do, by the way, get the Arakan. I would say that wasn't ideal for us that we just let them get it, but at the same time, Arakan, and I think people have learned this, it's not the be and end all. I think when Riot kind of said, oh, we're doing a new, you know, objective, he's this, he does this, I think people got very worried at the beginning of the year going, oh, whoever gets Feat of Strength and Arakan's going to win. No. I think we've all kind of come to the conclusion it's nice to have, and that's the point. It's nice to have. So Nami, what actually happened there, by the way, she was clearing the ward, and I think her red trinket ran out, so it actually made her character run forwards, and then it let you know, my grenade could land, and there we go. So you can kind of see we have started to recover this game. Lucian's pressure is definitely going down. Even though that they got Arakan, it's just not that big of a problem anymore. But yeah, overall, not too bad. And I would say the lane phase, obviously, something was going on in our bot lane. Nico definitely tilted. But the good thing is at least they've kind of, I think maybe my team has realized, oh no, this is actually winnable. So people are playing, what I would say is they are playing serious. So that's nice. So obviously Heimer, one of the best objective takers in the game, has consistent DPS, which is a very good thing for big things like dragons and barons. Also can, you know, occasionally take aggro with towers, so you're not losing full health. If a jungler wanted a dip, let a tower take a hit, you can do that. And obviously, when it comes to Heimer, one of his benefits is when he has his towers set up, it is very hard for the enemy team to run in and go, we're going to fight you. And that's one of the negatives of Heimer as well, is if you are playing him, he's terrible at like teleporting in for a fight. The exact same as like an Alawi, because what Heimer needs is setup time. And you might be like, oh, but if you've got 3 towers banked ready to go, you know, you can TP and put your 3 towers down. By the time you TP in and you put 3 towers down, it's a long time. Because when you put a tower down, they don't activate straight away. It takes a couple seconds, and you're like, oh, okay. So there's the Lucian, by the way, their late game carry, and he is struggling. So he flashes over the wall. Amumu obviously is now stuck. Unfortunately, Ambessa comes in over. I think I could have done a different ultimate there. But we do all manage to, or mainly manage to survive. Weirdly, the enemy team is oddly positioned. So I didn't actually pay attention to what the Zoe and the Nami was doing in that fight. But they were in our jungle, obviously to go protect the Lucian, no doubt. But I don't even know how they were there or why they were there. Lucian's running into a teleport. That's the Silas returning. And I already made the decision. If Silas landed the E, I knew I was going to flash. Because I was like, well, Lucian is the be and end all. Zoe can't really carry solo. Lucian's falling off, but killing him, I think, is a major, again, something that people underestimate. That was a weird kill. But people underestimate, and I think it is very important. Nami, I would say, she used, by the way, both summoners there to just die anyway. But again, League of Legends is such a mental game, and I think we'd all agree to that. That, oh, the how many kills, like, Lucian's got 13 or 15 kills, whatever it is. If you just kill their main carry, it is such a mental drain of going, oh no, our main carry's died. going for him using a flash is always practically going to be worth it. Now, what I'm thinking here, Baron is coming up. I made a mistake with that tower, by the way. It's not in the bush. But I'm like, Baron's up. Basically, what I didn't want to do is aggro the blue. I didn't want the blue to disappear from the map. So I wanted to not aggro the blue, don't kill it, get the Amumu to go for the blue, which he did. And that actually can give us the Baron. The Amumu, I think, should have thought a bit more about that. Like, just going openly for the blue was just crazy risky. And I will say, I was quite shocked to see an Amumu in Master, especially over 100 LP Master, because naturally, you know, some champions should be better in low rating, should be better in high rating, and historically, Amumu has never been amazing in high rating. Now, again, there was a little time ago that he was just, like, kind of statistically broken, and people were playing him in pro play and challenger, but he's not really in a broken state anymore, so I was a bit like, whoa. And I do vaguely remember this guy. I think Amumu was his second most played champion. I think he did have a main champion that wasn't Amumu, but I think he was doing kind of okay with it. So I was quite impressed that, you know, he was in a master game on Amumu. You know, he didn't do terrible. He did obviously, I think, mainly help the bot lane. You know, my lane opponent is 0-7, but you know, the enemy team did prioritize helping the lane that needed the snowball. So what the enemy team did isn't bad, by the way. Zoe roaming to help the Lucian, Amumu ganking a few times. They needed to do that, because if the Lucian doesn't get ahead, well, then we would have won the game probably 5 minutes ago. But now we're getting to, say, the stage of the game that the enemy team needed to kind of really try and snowball and win probably again 5 minutes ago. They didn't really push their advantage enough, and they kind of got caught out a couple times, and that really... When you get caught out a couple times, it ruins your momentum, even if you're still ahead. And that's kind of what happened. Is they were ahead, probably gold-wise, they were still ahead. You know, even after getting caught 1 time or 2 times. But it's the kind of premise of momentum is the key. So me and Talon in this bush, looking obviously to try and get a pick. I do miss the grenade, but luckily it doesn't matter. So he does walk in, we do kill him. You know, I think the Amumu, yeah, he did go very heavy AP early. Obviously that was the build that when he was like a kind of a statistically broken champion, people did rush Leandris and stuff. I'd say it's much harder to get away with that now that he isn't like statistically broken. Needs to be careful, Mr. Silas here. Lucian ulting me. I do put my ultimate tower down just as like a kind of defense of you can't walk forward. But the enemy team do get assassinated from the Talon. I am wanting to commit for this, and I do make a mistake, but I wanted that inhib. But mistakes were made, I guess, and luckily for me, I think the recovery will happen. And obviously that was, I think, Ignite by Lucian, but he's also obviously running Collector. But the cleanup crew is on their way, and yeah. So I would say this game is a advertisement of if you know you scale better, stay in it. And I knew we would. You know, this game was not a great game. People were definitely tilting. Things were not going great. But we know we outscale. And by the way, people might be like, how do you know you outscale? Because I know if you're a newer player, that can be a bit of a confusing concept. I know when it comes to scaling what champions scale and which times don't, just off the top of my head now. But how you actually, from the first place, if I go, here's a brand new champion, how do people get to know what they are? In the maths, it is that simple, what their scaling ratios are. So something like a Lucian, he will not have the highest damage in terms of scaling ratios, but he'll have a much more front-loaded damage early. So his spells will do more damage, but his AD ratios, when it comes to late game scaling, when you get all the AD, it won't be as much in comparison to other AD carries. So don't get me wrong, a Lucian is still strong in late game. It's an AD carry. Most of them can do really good damage later. But if you have the same items or same equivalent items on a Lucian to a Severe or a Jinx, Lucian doesn't hold, you know, anywhere near the level of damage to the scaling AD carries. And that's where he has to push an advantage early. So yeah, that's what I would say. So Mrs. Zoe is obviously still trying to do a bit of cheeky laning. Ambessa went down to a Talon. Look at that. So Lucian has now died to my bot lane. I do a cheeky flash there, but I just mistimed it. So I wanted a flash grenade, then ultimate W. I just mistimed it, and she got basically to use her flash, and there's the surrender vote. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was my last win of last play session. And that does mean we have hit a all-time record new LP. I can't actually remember what year I set my LP record. I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But we are officially going to be at a new LP record. And obviously, you know, I'm going to keep playing. Tomorrow is my next play session. I'm going to keep trying to win. That does mean I'm on a 8-game win streak, and obviously all win streaks have to eventually come to an end, so I am expecting it to end soon. But ladies and gentlemen, our new LP peak of all time is 154 LP. And one thing is also very noticeable, my MMR has actually neutralized. So if you've been watching recently, I was gaining 17, losing 22, 23. The game before this, again, for those like, where, you know, there was a few gaps in LP jumps. The game before this, my top laner stopped playing at level 1, but he got to lane, then I guess DC'd, so they couldn't remake. So I got a free win. In that game, I gained 21 LP. But overall, I'm doing, you know, I'm very happy with how we're doing. Obviously, damage-wise, pretty good. Silas eventually absolutely taking over, but his lane phase was pretty rough. And yeah, Severe struggled. You know, it is worth mentioning, but we outscaled nonetheless. But anyway, that's going to be it. If you guys are enjoying the recent content, do throw a like on it. Let me know how you guys are all doing. And yeah, new LP peak. Pretty happy with that. But anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time. Peace.
Welcome to the Rift, where the legends play. It's HuzzyGames bringing skill every day. From tips to tricks and play so fine. You'll learn the game and have a good time. Thanks for watching, you're the real MVP. Hit that like and sub, join the family tree. Like, comment, and subscribe. Keep the Huzzy dream alive. Tune in on Twitch, it's a place.